So today I want to talk about a book that has had quite a huge influence on me. Here are some interesting things about this book. It is set in a different continent, different country, a different time. It was released in 1979, first published, but it's set in 1905. And wait for it, it is fictional. I was inspired by a fictional character. And I've read this book, all 868 pages of this book, so many times throughout my life. I first got this book called A Woman of Substance by Barbara Taylor Bradford. I was roughly 12 or 13. I was really young. I was in high school, that I remember. Like most of my books, I got it from my mother's library. And I've read it again late teens. Read it early adulting. I remember taking it to varsity. I remember reading it in metric. I remember, and why I remember reading it in metric is that we used to um, write our exams in our workshop. And oh, was it metric? Because metric were we allowed to bring stuff during when everybody else was doing last minute studying. I would be reading, and it's one of the books I read. I never did that whole last minute studying thing. Has never been my vibe. I then read it in varsity because I remember it's one of the books that I took with me to varsity, and that's when I did the whole sellotaping thing. This book I've read it again when I lived with a friend of mine in Senton, and I read it again when I bought my first home. I remember clearly reading it when we had one sofa, me and hubby. And I've read it when I was on maternity leave with my daughter. Like, I've read it, like, guys, I've read this book. Emma Hart, the main character, blows my mind. So let me just read the blurb for you, so to give you context. In 1905, Emma Hart, kitchen maid, leaves Furley Hall. She is 16, single, and pregnant. By 1968, she's one of the richest women in the world, ruler of a business empire that stretches from Yorkshire to the glittering cities of America and the rugged vastness of Australia. Emma Hart is a woman of substance, but what is the price she has paid? A magnificent dynastic saga, as impossible to put down as it is to forget. A Woman of Substance is truly a novel of our times. Whoever wrote this didn't realize that it would span over many times. This book, so you will note in the second line it says, she is 16, single, and pregnant. And you'll also note they say Emma Hart, kitchen maid, kitchen maid. Now, this woman went from being a kitchen maid. Back in the days, you were born poor, you die poor. Like 1905, that stuff mattered. This woman went from being a kitchen maid in a little small village in England. It's called Yorkshire. Not sure if it still exists now. And it was a coal town. It was a coal mining town. I could be wrong, but right. And she went from that to owning beauty stores, to owning mines. She was in everything. What drove her was not just wanting to be successful, it was revenge. That's what's missing here. She was pregnant with the rich family that she was working for. The last born, the child, the son, they fell in love, they had a vibe, broke each other's virginity in a cave. Jeez. And the grandmother, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the grandmother, was like, no, 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 no. We will not have grandchildren from the help. And um, obviously tried to pay off Emma, to realizing this her grandchild was in love with this girl, paid her off to leave, but also I think tried to get her to abort. Either way, she went off angry. Angry. Another thing they do not say here. She was angry. That anger and that thirst for blood against that family drove her to success. Now, this book is thick. It doesn't show a linear move to success. Her success was like this. She went through things. Um, she got married twice, abusive marriage, all sorts of things. Taught herself how to sew. Didn't go through to school. You know, she went through the mud to get to where she was. Just a reminder, fictional. But when I read this, and why I keep reading this, is that I'm blown away by the focus in the end goal. That was her focus. She had her vision board, and she was like, I am going to buy out these people and be more successful than them. And she stayed the course regardless of what was happening in her life. Furthermore, in addition to her determination and perseverance, she was shrewd. I mean, one of my other favorite books is Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Offers. She was shrewd. She knew what she wanted, and she knew what she had to do to get it. And she was thinking long term with everything she wanted. And the line here where it says, but what is the price she has paid? A key price she paid was her relationship with her children, which is a different discussion on its own. Her children, some were very spoiled, some were very entitled, because as you can imagine, they were not raised like she was. They did not come from poverty. They came from a woman who owned so much, went to the best private schools. They demanded money. They got the land. So the setting of this book is when she gets a recording of when her children are planning her death to push her, because they believe she was taking time to die. But her favorite child, who was probably going to get everything, was the grandchild, who was actually named after her. So it's a very interesting book, very interesting story, and I believe I keep reading it because it sets as a reminder that success is not linear. There isn't like a paved beautiful road to the end product. And whatever challenging time I might be going through at a certain time doesn't mean that's the end. And I mean, if you look at the periods of my life that I rated, from when I teenagehood, when I early adulting, varsity, now as a parent, as you go, And also an interesting twist was that at the end is how her family knew she completely despised that other family, the family that made her run away at 16, single and pregnant. And you can imagine in 1905, that was a big no-no, just in general, being single and pregnant, right? Is that an interesting twist at the end is that her grandchild actually fell in love with the grandchild of the family she despised. And that softened her when she met this young man. And that young man knew that this woman hated her. But then you then realize that as much as she was driven by revenge, she was also driven by heartbreak. That was her first love. So that is Emma Hart. This, I mean, in my research in it, I actually discovered that this is book one of 7 books um, that have been written by Barbara Taylor Bradford. Um, I'm actually thinking of getting the other books. It would be quite interesting. So it's a series. And I also realized that actually there was an actual series televised based on the story, episodes and all. I wonder how that came out. Um, since I'm such a big fan, and I know this one of my friends who's also actually has read this book as well. So what I'd love to know from you is which fictional, please note fictional, please don't tell me about um, the real people. Don't tell me about Oprah. Don't tell me, please, no. Don't tell me about Patrice Motsepe. Don't tell me about Carol Bauer. No. Which fictional? Fictional. So a character that does not exist from a novel that is part of an author's imagination. A story that is so well told and a character so well developed for you, influenced you in some way or the other, whether it's in business, relationship, friendships, made you just look at the world from a different perspective. I'd love to know. Tell us, let's share the novels that um, really like you think about every now and then, even if they didn't really like influence you, but you think about them as though you could send them a friend request or follow them on Twitter. It would be nice to know these books that kind of have that impact, that have had that kind of impact. I mean, it says a lot about the writer. So I'd really love us to share about, you know, how it impacted you, or what you really liked about that character, what got you thinking, or what disappointed you, um, or what was the plot twist about this character where you still like they live rent free in your mind. So for me, Emma Hart, she lives rent free in my mind. I don't necessarily have a what would Emma Hart do. Maybe I kind of do. But for me, in terms of goal setting and really going after what I want, that's how Emma Hart has influenced that. Keep going, regardless of what's going on in your life. Take it in the chin and keep going. That's how Emma Hart, a fictional character of a fictional book, has has impacted this girl in front of you. So please share. Thank you for watching again. If you are coming back, this is my second video. And those who are new to this, please like, comment as well, and subscribe.